What if the myths of giants, monsters, and hybrid creatures were not myths at all, but records? Buried in the ashes of forbidden texts lies a story so unsettling, it was nearly erased from history. A story of 200 rogue beings who descended to Earth, mated with humans, and engineered creatures so grotesque, they shattered the natural order. This is not fantasy. This is the Book of Enoch, a text so dangerous, early Christian councils banned it. Yet fragments survived, guarded in secret for millennia. Who were these watchers, angels who abandoned heaven to corrupt mankind? What abominations did they create? And why do some scholars believe their experiments hold a dire warning for us? Tonight we descend into the shadowed corridors of history, to a time when the divine and monstrous walk side by side, to a zoo not of animals, but of us. To understand the Watchers, we must return to the Book of Enoch, a text older than Genesis, yet condemned by later religious authorities. Written in the 2nd century BCE, it claims to be the visions of Enoch, a patriarch who walked with angels and witnessed their betrayal. But why was this book excluded from most biblical canons? Councils like Laodicea in the 4th century deemed it too volatile, too revealing. Yet fragments survived, hidden in caves, buried in desert sands, or guarded by traditions like the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which still considers Enoch sacred to this day. But the Watcher's story echoes beyond Enoch. Ancient Sumerian texts speak of the Apkallu, 7 sages sent by the gods to teach humanity, later banished for overstepping their role. Greek myths warn of Prometheus, punished for gifting fire to mortals. Even the Aztec god Quetzalcoatl faced exile for sharing forbidden knowledge. Coincidence? Or fragments of a shared memory? A primal fear of beings who blurred the line between creator and destroyer? Here, at Mount Hermon, the Book of Enoch claims the Watchers swore a blood oath. 200 angels descended, took human wives, and unleashed secrets never meant for mortal hands. Metallurgy, sorcery, warfare, and genetic manipulation. But why? Were they rebels or something darker? Some researchers suggest they sought to corrupt humanity's divine blueprint, creating hybrids to destabilize the natural world. Others believe they were trapped by their own desires, seduced by the very beings they were meant to guide. The texts describe their offspring, the Nephilim, as giants whose height was 3,000 ells. But these were not mere titans. Ancient sources hint at chimeras, lions with scorpion tails, eagles with human faces, and creatures partly flesh, partly spirit. Were these symbolic warnings or literal abominations? Recently discovered manuscripts describe the Watchers' experiments in chilling detail. They altered the patterns of life, mixing seed and soil, beast and bone, until the earth cried out. This corruption, Enoch warns, led to divine retribution, the Great Flood. But why erase an entire world? Some scholars argue it was not just humanity's sin that doomed them, but the Watchers' legacy, a planet overrun by genetic chaos. Yet whispers of their creations persisted. The Greek Cyclops, the Egyptian Ammit, even the biblical Leviathan. Could these be distorted memories of what the Watchers wrought? What became of the Watchers' grotesque zoo? And what remains of their forbidden knowledge, Inisori? The Watchers did not fall alone. 200 beings, each a master of forbidden arts, landed here, on Mount Hermon. Ancient texts name their leaders: Semjaza, the strategist; Azazel, the weaponsmith; Kokabeel, the stargazer. Together they swore an oath to share heaven's secrets and to remake humanity. But what began as enlightenment soon spiraled into obsession. They taught metallurgy, unlocking the power to forge swords and shields. They revealed astronomy, mapping constellations to manipulate fate. They even shared cosmetics, the art of beautifying the eyes. to seduce and corrupt. Yet their most dangerous gift was biology. The Watchers, some scholars argue, were ancient genetic engineers. They spliced species, warped human DNA, and birthed horrors that defied categorization. The Book of Enoch claims they changed their own vessels to mate with humans. But what does that mean? Recent studies propose a chilling interpretation. These beings altered their biology to infiltrate humanity. Like parasites, they fused their essence with ours, creating hybrids that carried both divine power and monstrous hunger. Their offspring, the Nephilim, were not merely giants. They were transgressors, violating the boundaries of life itself. Ancient accounts describe Nephilim with teeth like swords, skin like scales, and appetites that could never be sated. But the Watchers' experiments went further. They bred chimeras, serpents with wings, bulls with human faces, creatures that howled with the voices of men. Some researchers speculate these abominations were weapons, living siege engines designed to conquer and terrify. Others believe they were attempts to mimic divine creation and replace it. How did they achieve this? The Book of Enoch speaks of roots that cut the earth and waters that grant vision. Cryptic phrases, yes, but some linguists tie these to hallucinogenic plants or early chemical knowledge. Could the Watchers have used psychotropic compounds to alter perception or DNA? Remarkably, clay tablets from Ugarit describe similar rituals where the blood of beasts and stars was mixed to reshape flesh. But why risk divine wrath? Here the texts grow ambiguous. Some scholars suggest the Watchers rebelled out of envy, a desire to be worshipped as gods. Others propose a darker motive. They were trapping humanity. By polluting our genetic line, they could claim ownership of souls, corrupting the divine plan. Yet another theory emerges from Babylonian exile records. The Watchers sought to create a hybrid army to storm heaven itself. Whatever their goal, their legacy was chaos. The Nephilim devoured crops, then livestock, then humans. Hybrid beasts ravaged villages, and the Watchers, now addicted to earthly power, waged war on one another. Enoch describes a world filled with blood, madness, and the stench of rotting skies. But the most disturbing detail? These events mirror genetic degradation seen in modern cloning experiments, a collapse of biological integrity when species are forcibly merged. How the Watchers' zoo triggered a global cataclysm, and why fragments of their DNA might still linger in our world. The Watchers' zoo could not last. Enoch's texts claim the earth itself revolted. Crops withered, rivers turned to poison, and the ground shook with the screams of twisted souls. But the final blow came from above. Divine forces, enraged by the corruption of creation, unleashed the deluge. Yet this was no ordinary flood. Ancient sources describe waters that burned like fire and storms that lasted 40 lifetimes, erasing not just life, but memory. Why such annihilation? Some scholars argue the flood targeted the Watchers' genetic abominations. Hybrid beings, part spirit and part flesh, could not be allowed to multiply. Their very existence threatened the boundary between realms, but fragments of their legacy survived. The Book of Giants, discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls, recounts how Nephilim remnants fled to caves, gnawing their limbs in hunger as the waters rose. Others, it said, were bound beneath mountains, a claim echoed in Greek myths of titans imprisoned in Tartarus. In 2019, archaeologists uncovered a burial site in Cappadocia containing skeletons over 9 feet tall, with fused vertebrae and bizarre cranial deformities. Carbon dating placed them at 5000 BCE, shown a post-flood. Were these Nephilim descendants or new experiments? Genetic analysis revealed anomalies, markers inconsistent with Homo sapiens, yet undeniably human. Researchers quietly labeled them outlier specimens X12, but ancient texts have another name, the second generation. Could this explain why hybrid creatures resurface in every culture? The Babylonian Mushusu, a lion-dragon hybrid, guarded temples. The Hindu Makara, part fish, part elephant, adorned sacred gates. Even Plato wrote of Atlantis's beasts that spoke like men. Are these mere myths or fragmented truths? Recent linguistic studies reveal a startling pattern. The Sumerian word for demon, udug, shares a root with their term for clay, the very material the gods used to create humans. Coincidence? Or a coded warning about tampering with life's building blocks? As for the Watchers, their fate was sealed. Enoch describes them bound in eternal darkness, guarded by archangels until the final judgment. But their knowledge did not die. The Book of Jubilees claims Noah preserved fragments of their teachings, hiding them atop Mount Ararat. This aligns with Armenian legends of a vault of cursed arts buried in ice, a tale that fueled Nazi expeditions in the 1930s. Yet no vault has ever been found or admitted. Here lies the deepest mystery. The Watchers' crimes mirror humanity's modern ambitions, genetic engineering, AI, and the quest to conquer death. Ancient texts warn that their greatest sin was hubris, the belief they could improve upon divine design. Today, as scientists splice genes and birth chimeras in labs, some researchers urge caution. They point to Enoch's warning: the corrupted seed will rise again, and its roots will strangle the heavens. Are we repeating the Watchers' mistakes? In 2022, a controversial study revealed that 2% of human DNA contains non-terrestrial sequences, stretches with no evolutionary precedent. Mainstream science dismisses it as viral remnants, but fringe theorists whisper of Watcher markers. Could this explain sudden leaps in human innovation? Or latent abilities like premonition or psychokinesis, often dismissed as folklore? How to protect yourself from the fallen's legacy, and why their story is your story. The Watcher's tale is not just a warning, it's a mirror. Their hunger to reshape life echoes in our labs and algorithms. But how do we navigate this power without repeating their catastrophe? The answer may lie in balance. Ancient traditions whisper that true wisdom begins by honoring boundaries between knowledge and hubris, innovation and nature. First, discernment. The Watchers fell because they ignored divine law. Today, discernment means questioning what we alter and why. Some researchers suggest adopting the Enochian pause, a ritual of reflection before pursuing transformative acts. Light a candle, study the stars, or walk in silence. These practices, rooted in Enoch's own routines, ground us in humility. Second, ethical anchors. The Book of Enoch claims the Watchers' children were marked by their teeth and eyes. Today, geneticists speak of CRISPR off-target effects, unintended mutations, coincidence, or a lesson. Before editing a gene or deploying AI, ask, does this preserve life's sanctity? Could it harm the seventh generation? Ancient or modern, the rule remains. Creation demands reverence. Third, reclaim the sacred. The Watchers' hybrids thrived in moral chaos. Counter them by restoring awe. Tend a garden, study ancestral myths, or create art. Acts that reconnect us to life's unforced beauty. Anthropologists note that cultures preserving ritual, like Ethiopia's Enochian traditions, show greater resilience to societal collapse. Structure, it seems, is salvation. But what if you feel their influence already? Texts warn of the Watcher's lingering shadow, a pull toward excess, nihilism, or isolation. Combat this with community. Gather minds that seek truth, not power. Share stories, decode symbols. Even small circles, and historians note, preserved Enoch's texts through millennia of persecution. Finally, and prepare the ark. Noah saved more than animals, he preserved knowledge. Today, safeguard wisdom offline. Keep a journal, memorize key texts, learn survival skills disconnected from grids. Why? Because the Watchers' greatest weapon was dependency on their gifts, their systems, their chaos. Freedom lies in self-reliance. The Watchers failed because they forgot their place, but their story need not be ours. Heed the past and walk with eyes open. The Watcher's story is a labyrinth of fire and shadow, angels who became tyrants, teachers who became poisoners, and a zoo that became a grave. For millennia, their tale was suppressed, not just for its horror, but for its truth. That power without wisdom is a slow apocalypse. Yet here we are, decoding their sins in a world of cloned sheep, AI oracles, and designer babies. The question isn't whether history repeats itself, but whether we'll recognize the pattern before it's too late. The Book of Enoch survives not as a relic, but as a mirror. It asks, what makes us human? Our genes, our souls, or the choices we make when no one and everyone is watching? Some traditions never forgot. The Ethiopian church safeguarded Enoch's words, embedding them in rituals that still pulse with urgency. Meanwhile, fragments of the Watcher's legacy linger in myths, in DNA, in the quiet dread that our creations might outgrow us. But there is hope. Every time we choose awe over arrogance, stewardship over domination, we rebuild the walls the Watchers tore down. The fallen sought to corrupt humanity's blueprint. They failed, because woven into that blueprint is something they never understood: the capacity to choose light. To erase their stain, we need no floods, only the courage to see ourselves clearly. So we leave you with this. Every breakthrough, every invention, every step into the unknown. Is it a rebellion or a homecoming? The answer lies in the question itself. Ask. If you dare to dig deeper into the secrets buried in time, subscribe. The next truth is already waiting. Thank you for watching.